Sadly, there were nearly 400 deaths yesterday alone from COVID-19. How is the UK holding up?
Well, we're all in the same challenge, and my government is as committed as yours to try to mitigate the situation we find ourselves in, putting out the same sort of health advice for people to self-isolate, all those tips about washing your hands, staying at home, social distancing. But my priority right now here in Australia is about looking after the thousands of British travellers who are stuck here, who are desperate to get home. And that is my focus with my entire team, how to help our people go home.
And I know that the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, has announced a multi-million-pound airlift operation support for those British citizens to get home. Talk us through what's being done here for those British citizens in Australia.
Well, our first priority in this area, which is very difficult, and I know people are frustrated, is to keep the commercial carriers going, those airlines, those air routes, those transit hubs, because of the volume of traffic that we have to contend with. We estimate right now there are still about 35,000 British people in Australia on tourist visas, working holiday makers, those short-term visitors who are desperate to get home. We also know that in the last 3-4 weeks, about 30,000 have managed to get back on the commercial flights that are available and continue to be available. Just in the last week, about 7,000 managed to get on those flights. That is the best way to get our people home. So we have been working with the airlines to try to persuade them to keep flying. We've been promoting the flights that are available. We hope that Qantas will come back on stream, for example. We're working with British Airways to make sure that they retain their route. We have worked very successfully with Qatar Airlines, not just to maintain their existing schedule, but to add new and additional flights. For example, to Brisbane, where they didn't have a flight before, because we know we have a lot of tourists in Queensland. And given the restrictions on interstate travel, getting a flight for the first time into Brisbane that can take our people via Doha back to the UK. So that's a critical priority for us. Where the government will lay on what are called repatriation flights is really only where the commercial options have ceased to exist and there is no other way home. Only in that context will we look to facilitate a chartered airline to compensate for the lack of commercial options. That is not currently the situation here in Australia.
Given the challenges that are being faced in the United Kingdom, though, are there some British citizens who would rather ride this crisis out here in Australia?
Well, it depends what type of British citizen you are here. There are lots of British nationals who have employment here in Australia, who have made Australia home, who are long-term residents. There is no reason why those British people need to go back home, unless, of course, there is a particular personal context, like worry over an aging parent, to be back home for them. So our advice is for the British citizens who are able to stay on, can get visa extensions, or are long-term residents, or are still in employment and covered by their employers here, and those who have the funds. Maybe it is best to try to stay here and see this out. The people that we really want to focus our attention on are those who need to go home, particularly our most vulnerable, people who might be ill, are having medication, or they need care, young people who are without means now. And that's why we're asking British people to register with us. We launched our new registration site only last Wednesday, Thursday, and already over 11,000 people have registered with us. We're working our way through those people who have registered with us, trying to identify those who are at the most vulnerable, who need our help immediately. There are many who don't need our help immediately. I would ask people to be patient. My entire team across our Australia network are simply focused now on this work. We have stopped everything else to focus on this work.